Hey guys, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering deck tech. Today I'm going to show you a budget deck tech, Mono Black Devotion. Now this should be pretty easy to make. I've got a couple of extra cards that you should be working towards if you're going to use this deck. But let's get to the deck. So for the 1-drops, we've got 2 Viper's Kiss, a Gnarled Scarhide, a Farika's Chosen, and a Duress. The Viper's Kiss are very good for disabling other creatures. They give -1/-1, and they can't activate activated abilities. It's also a 1-drop that is pure devotion. The Gnarled Scarhide, another 1-drop, 2/1. It can't block, sorry. And for 4, you can bestow it onto any creature, and that creature can't block. So you can bestow it onto an enemy's creature if you really want to, and they can't block with that creature. That is a trick I've seen played a couple of times. It's brought people to the win. So it's a very good card. For a budget card, at least. Farika's Chosen is a 1/1 Death Touch for 1. Again, just why not? It's a common. Very good card. Like the Scorpion for green. But again, it's a very good card, especially for devotion. And then finally, we've got Duress for the 1-drops. Duress is a sorcery for 1. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. So that means you can get rid of planeswalkers or nasty instants and sorceries, which is pretty awesome. For the 2-drops, we've got 2 Phalanx Leaders, 2 for a 3/3 Defender. That's the only problem with them, though. If I were to work on this deck, I'd probably add in a couple of blue-black Skylands just to activate this. However, it's not a massive problem. And they're called Returned Phalanx, if you need to find them. Next, we've got 2 Spiteful Returned. 1/1 for 2. However, when it attacks, defending player loses 2 life. And that's automatic trigger. Whenever it attacks, that player loses 2 life. And you can also bestow it for 4, which is pretty nasty. Again, I've seen this played quite a lot. Next, we've got Doomblade, which is an awesome bit of removal. It's a 2-drop instant, destroy non-black creature. You've got to bear that in mind against certain decks. However, it is very nasty, and it's ruined me a couple of times before. And then finally for the 2-drops, we've got Brain Maggot. It's a 1/1, but when it enters the battlefield, you get to look at your opponent's hand, target opponent's hand, and exile a card from it until Brain Maggot leaves the battlefield. So unless they've got removal, you can exile anything from their hand and just not block with this guy, or not attack with this guy, and he'll be fine. Next, we've got 3 Necrobites. It's a 3-drop, target creature gains Death Touch and turns a turn, and then regenerate it. So another nasty combat trick. You can attack, they can block with something bigger. You can give your attacking creature Death Touch, kill their blocker, and you keep your creature, which is pretty nasty. Crypt of Incursion is our next spell. It's a 3-drop instant. Exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard. You gain 3 life for each creature card exiled this way, which is pretty nasty, especially when you're playing against another black deck, I guess, a dredge deck. That's going to ruin them and gain you loads of life, which is pretty awesome. Next is Staff of the Death Magus. 3-drop artifact. Whenever you cast a black spell or a swamp into the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. It's just a no-brainer for a black deck. And finally, in 3-drops, we've got 3 Mogis Marauders. 3-drop 2/2. However, whenever it enters the battlefield, up to X target creatures gain Intimidate and Haste until end of turn, where X is your devotion to black. That means you can go in for a swing most of the time, which is pretty awesome. The 4-drops, we've got 4 March of the Returned. 4-drop, return up to 2 target creature cards from the graveyard to your hand. This will come into play later when I show you some more of the cards in the deck. It'll make sense, but it's also a very good return card. Even though it is 4, you can return a couple of defenders, and there are 4 of them, so you'll be seeing them enough. Next, we've got 4 Cavern Lampards. They are 2/2 for 4 Intimidate, and you can bestow them for 6. So there is better, but again, it's only a common. And another, I think my final combat trick, Cutthroat Maneuver. 4-drop, up to 2 target creatures get +1/+1 lifelink until end of turn. Another nasty thing. It's won me a couple of games in drafting. Onto the 5-drops, we've got 3 Shrike Harpy, 2/2 flying for 5, Tribute 2. When it enters the battlefield, if tribute wasn't paid, target opponent sacrifices a creature, which is pretty nasty. So it's either a 2/2 flying and they lose a creature, or a 4/4 flying for 5, which is quite good for an uncommon. The last 5-drops are Grey Merchants of Asphodel. This is what the deck's all about. It's devotion to black, and this is what takes you to that devotion. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. So if you're playing against 3 or 4 people, and you bring in a Grey Merchant and hit them for 7 or something, you're gaining 21 or 28 life. It's ridiculous. And also, with our last card that's actually in the deck, we have Corrupt. 6-drop, however, when it deals damage, it's a sorcery, and Corrupt deals damage equal to the number of swamps you control to target creature or player. You gain life equal to damage dealt this way. That's a nasty card. It's got me a couple of times, because if you're taking a long time to beat a black deck, they probably have this in there somewhere. On the lands, we have 24 basic swamps. Nothing special there. But here are some more of the cards that I'd suggest adding to the deck when you can. First of all, the Whip of Erebos. It's a 4-drop enchantment artifact, and it gives creatures you control lifelink. And you can also return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains haste. Exile it at the end of exile it in the next end step. So you can return a Grey Merchant from the graveyard. However, you can also use Mark of the Returned. When you run out, or if you're just not drawing them, you can use the Whip. To go with the Whip, I'd suggest Erebos. A 4-drop, 5/7, indestructible, requires 5 devotion to black, which is easy in this deck. Your opponents can't gain life, and to pay 2 life and 1 black, you draw a card, which is very nice, especially with the Whip. Comboing them together, you're basically unstoppable. Next, we have Master of the Feasts, a 3-drop flying 5/5. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent draws a card. So it's a little bit of a drawback for you, but hey, you've got a 5/5 flyer on turn 3. I apologise for the camera skills, by the way. I'm holding it with one hand. It's not easy. Next, we have Thoughtseize. Now, I wouldn't suggest buying or trading for these, because they will take a hell of a lot. If you pull a Thoughtseize, you put it in the deck, no doubt. Unless you're running a Pauper deck like I am. That's the technical term for a budget deck, by the way. Next, a cheap rare, Abhorrent Overlord. Is a 7-drop 6/6 flyer. When it's a battlefield, you put a number of 1/1 black copy creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield, equal to your devotion to black. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice creature. That's the only minor drawback of him. So you get a bunch of 1/1s and you have to sacrifice one at the beginning of each upkeep. Oh well. Another bit of removal is Guild. 4-drop, exile target creature, put a colourless artifact token named Gold onto the battlefield. It has sacrificed this artifact, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool, which is again pretty nasty. It can get rid of gods when they have creature status, and it can get rid of any other creature really. Next, and finally, we have Agent of the Fates. 3-drop with 2 devotion to black, which is the best thing about him. Death Touch 3/2 with Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets him, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Now that's very nasty. Because although there's not much to target him in this deck, you've got the Bestows and you've got Viper's Kiss that can target him. That's pretty much all that you can target him. However, that's still a pretty nasty effect. If you can target him with anything, you're making him a psychic creature, which is pretty awesome. So thanks for watching, guys. This has been a Deck Tech, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.